Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Poisoner's Almanac podcast. I'm your co-host, Adam.
I'm Rebecca, and I've said that 4 times.
We are crossing every finger we can that Becca's computer will not
Yeah.
just start
This might be
blowing
the week.
smoke.
This might be the week we go and
Cover
Oops.
Pinky's ears.
replace.
We replace Pinky.
Yeah. Pinky's got to retire, I think. Heard that the retirement age was being raised, and she was like, not this one. Nope.
Yeah, it's been kind of a wild time. The car broke down again. My father happens to be a brilliant mechanic.
Not too surprised, though, by the car.
So, I mean, it is what it is. We at the time, we didn't have the money to get the car
Yeah.
that I really would prefer.
Well,
So,
it's always something when you're an adult, right? Like when you're an adult, it's always something. I feel like you kind of have to accept that because when you're a kid, and like you remember like what your parents said when you're growing up, well, just wait till you're older, and you're like, oh, whatever. They're totally dramatic. And you get older, and you're like, oh my God. So that being said, I want my child to really enjoy where she's at right now. I want her to enjoy her adulthood too, but you know, it's just I'm not gonna scare her from adulthood the same way.
so what's new with you?
You know, I've been reading a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a lot of stuff in the news that's been crazy. And I always go back to my books. I discovered a new game on the Switch. It was like $20. You know, I like those indie games. And
Dude, indie games are taking over.
It's that, and I'm okay with it.
Like
it was
Hollow Knight, was it Silk Song?
Yeah, I've heard about that one. I haven't tried it yet.
Absolutely blew away. Like
Yeah.
$20 for that. No, is it 40? Is it $20? Yeah, they charge $20 for the game. They're selling millions of copies, and all the major AAA studios are like, "What?
What?" Yeah,
It's 3 developers.
Yeah, and you
that
know
made
how
it.
much I love like Stardew Valley. And that's like one
Yeah.
guy making that. He's
Totally.
coming out with Haunted Chocolatier. But no, the game I got was the Tiny Bookshop, and like I can't even explain why it's so fun. It's like you have a tiny bookshop. You've given up everything, and you're like, screw it. I'm gonna be a tiny bookshop salesman person. And so
you would do that.
And you literally just kind of roll your little tiny bookshop, like tiny house looking thing, and you like pick which places to go and sell. And each place you should be selling like certain genres because like people will buy certain genres more in that area than in others. So you kind of remember that. And you meet all the people, and it's just very cozy. But like, and then people will say like, "Hey, can you give me a recommendation?" And they're all real book titles, so it's like, "Oh, I really liked The Hunger Games. What can you recommend for me?" And so you look through your little titles, and they have little examples. They have like summaries and stuff if you don't know what the books are. There's different genres, and so like if you get the book like they really want, they're super happy. Otherwise, they're like, "Not what I was looking for," and you're like, "My bad," literally. But it's just fun. I played like 3 hours the other night, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." Not getting the laundry done.
It's a cozy game.
It is. It's really fun. It was like $20, and I was like, I feel like I spend more time on indie games anyway.
Dude, it's so good. I love it. It's like sticking it to the man. Like the video game industry, like that's what it's the perfect place for that to happen. It's like, indie musicians who like explode on social media, like Jesse Wells.
I feel like
he writes like protest songs. That's literally all he does, and everybody's like, "That's incredible."
Well, you also just get more for what you pay for. I feel like if it's something you really enjoy. I've played Stardew probably more than any other game out there. I keep going back to it, and it's just
everybody and their brother in the Stardew community wants Haunted Chocolatier.
And I got that game for $5 because I had like points on my Switch, and it was like $10 on sale. And I mean, I have other games like it too. There's like the potion. There's a potions game on there. It's fun, and it was cheap. I tend to play the cheaper games a lot more just because they're a lot more fun.
Totally.
They're kind of right up my alley.
Let's jump into some comments from Spotify.
Need a Poisoner's Almanac indie game.
That's a brilliant idea. Oh my God.
Be fun.
Oh my God.
If anyone knows how to make games, hit me up.
You're like in medieval Europe, and you help the women of awful men poison their husbands.
You could pick an era.
Oh my God. That's a brilliant idea.
The Aqua Tofana game. Somebody hit me up.
Yeah. If any developers are listening to this, send us a DM. This is a brilliant idea. All right. Blaufrosch, a.k.a. Clara Jurisons, as you know, says, it's Pleakley's fault for the mosquitoes.
Pleakley.
Disneyland or World has so little standing water by design so that they don't have to worry about mosquitoes.
Here, educate yourself. I love that movie.
And as always, my favorite medicine-related linguistic fun fact is that the word vaccine comes from the Latin word for cow, because cowpox was used to create one of the first vaccines.
Yeah, for smallpox.
There you go.
Because he noticed that cowpox was not as severe when people got it, and they seemed to develop a resistance to the smallpox.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Twish Granter says, as soon as you said Devil's Crunch, I thought that sounds like it's a cereal. They may want to
Doesn't
rename
it? Yeah, Devil's Crunch. It just...
Oh, what a moment.
What did you, were you sick? Yeah, I had the Devil's Crunch, man.
What? Yeah. Kiki Lynette says, Karen Carpenter was an amazingly talented person. Thanks for shouting me out. Also, love the pink hair.
Oh, thank you.
In all caps.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And Amy Potter with just a bomb of a comment. She goes, this podcast gets me through my Mondays.
Mondays are hard,
Amy, bars. I felt it. Girl.
Oh, tomorrow's Monday.
I love it. But it ain't here yet, so shut your mouth. All right, that's going to take us to some old housekeeping.
What housekeeping?
The ads full of spices.
Speaking of housekeeping, I got laundry to do after this.
Same. I'm going to clean a bunch of stuff when we get done. Be sure to follow us on whatever platform you're listening or watching on. Thank you in advance for leaving 5-star reviews on places such as Spotify. We are crushing with reviews on Spotify. We have a 4.9 star average, and we're coming up. What do we have? Like 400 reviews on there? It's insane. Thank you guys so much. Be sure to follow us on the socials. We got links in the show notes to follow our personal socials, as well as the dedicated podcast channels. The Patreon is up and running. There's a link in the show notes to join. For a single, we have more tiers that have been added to the Patreon.
Well, one more. I'll be adding. I'm hoping to add the next one on, hopefully this week.
There we go.
I don't like to say when I'm going to do things because I swear it feels like something always happens, but I'm determined.
Sweetheart, your brain does not exist within time and space, if that's okay.
Well, time is relative anyway, let's be honest.
See, there you go. There you go. So anyway, we've added a second tier to the Patreon. We have the lowest tier, the $1 tier, gets you access to perks such as weekly bonus episodes, the option to leave us a voicemail that we can play on the podcast and react to. And you get shouted out on the podcast by name. There is now a $3 a month tier that now includes the Poison in the News segment, which the more we did it, the more it felt like it should be a segment that we spin off all on its own, because we talk about, it's news items and it's the intersection of current events and poison.
We were spending a good 20 to 30 minutes on that anyway.
We really were.
And it was, it started out as something small, but then it kind of grew into its own thing.
It took on a life of its own, so we spun it off into a new tier on the Patreon.
Indeed.
And coming soon, I'll say it that way, will be the $5 tier that will include everything else and what we are calling Camillasodes, which are like educational content for kids, for neurodivergent people with neurodivergent kids, etc.
Not just kids, but family friendly. So
totally.
I mean, I like watching kids shows sometimes.
Totally.
Look, Blippi was bomb back in the day.
And so you've already filmed you've already got your footage for your first Camilla.
Yeah, I need to edit it. There's a few other things I'm going to add onto that today, actually, because just some fun stuff. We did some stuff outside. I want to do a few things, so we talk about some other stuff too. But yeah.
So that's going to be the Patreon going forward. And speaking of being shouted out on the podcast by name, those people are as follows: 87 Pins Girl 71, Mara Santiago, Grace Lahan, Genevieve, Nahev Shatreet, Jay Went, Incan Hafner, Kiri Yorsek, Tay of Sunshine, Monique, Shane R, Sue Steves, James Mills, Megan Geiler, Liz B, Woolly Wolf NZ, Mama G, Nicole Rivers, Richard Miyako, Heather Nolan, Kaylee, Sasha Rubel, Maya Showstock, Maggie's Yarm, Ogre de Viking, Lynn Rocket, Brett Moser, Zaid, Neil Houdini, Nicole Crane, Jefferson Vargas, Carmen Q, Sarah G, Knit Ninja, Estar, Olive Octopus, Betsy Rich, T-Bug, Christine Muljadi, Morgan Brittingham, Blau Frosch, a.k.a. Clara Jurisons, Vix, Anne Maria, Carl Ziegler Jr., Clyde, Jennifer Wilson Richter, Too Fidgety, Wendy G, Elena MK, Caitlin Martin, Pungram 101, Minnesota SPT, Tasha, Stuart Slattery, Simone Valdez, Christian Skredergaard, Bonnie, Omadi, Rynel Alara, Kristen Arnold, Aaron Carey, Lynn Simpson, Melissa Emmel, Desiree Davis, Jennifer Ramirez Johnson, Dalek Party, The Warped Witch, Dizzy Dancer, Creative Otter, Yadmit, Supergirl Sway, Rachel, Anya Brandt, Ebby, Leah Marie Matson, Lady Digitalis, Jesse, Shay 10, Julia Franzoni, Sparks, Gloria Eichmann, Thomas Huff, From Strings to Things, Soy Kasumi, Jessica Gasparini, who has a special request that we mention the very sad passing of her dog, Trilby. And she wrote in the message, YT, which we think implies
maybe Yorkshire.
Trilby is a Yorkshire Terrier.
Maybe.
We are very sorry for your loss. Our dogs are members of the family, are they not?
Indeed.
Yeah. So we're very sorry that they passed on.
Here's to Trilby.
Exactly. Here's to Trilby. Robert Jr., Caitlin and Donna Lanchanese, Lauren Smith, Anna G., Serpentine Fire, Melanie the SLP, Stuart Lee, Solstice, Chris Millanak, Mackenzie Kennedy, Libby, Hetty, Hantapalooza, J Moon, Kelsey H., Paper Sky, Hannah Cook, Nikki Larkin, Campasar, Rick Clark, Paris Langer, let us know how to say that, Paris. Andrea Shameless Agitator, Ruby Salazar, and please welcome to the Patreon, our two newest members, Ruby Salazar and Cassandra Smiles. She's probably smiling when I say her name on the podcast.
Smile.
Just saying. All right. What are we talking about? Well, we're continuing mosquito-borne illnesses, are we not?
We are, and you're going to be very proud of me because as much as I didn't want to do it, I'm actually only limiting it to talking about malaria today and one other that just happened to be in the news very recently. Sometimes I do these episodes, and then like the thing I'm talking about that's pretty rare, typically I see in the news, and I'm like, is this a pick your own adventure? Is this what this is? But I am, because I said I was going to talk about a couple of others, I'll probably include that as a sort of bonus later, because there's just not enough time. But the one I want to talk about that was in the news recently is the Eastern equine encephalitis. This one, as you can see from its name, it happens in horses. It can happen in humans too. It's pretty rare, but it is pretty serious when it hits. Now, I'm just going to I'll give some quick facts about this and then just let you know where it was in the news, and then we'll hit malaria, go from there. So it's actually pretty similar to West Nile and Zika, just on a more serious level. It's primarily seen in North and South America, plus the Caribbean. And this one is spread by the Culex and Aedes mosquitoes, like those particular species or genuses, whatever. Now, they like birds as hosts. They mainly affect horses and humans. With horses and humans, we would be their dead end host, basically. So like if a horse catches it, it wouldn't be able to give it to a human. If a human catches it, it's not going to be able to give it to a horse or another human, or you know what I mean? Like it's a dead end sort of host. It's the mosquito that's passing it to human or horse, you know. Now, if symptomatic, because some cases you just wouldn't know you had it, but if symptomatic, onset is between 4 and 10 days after a bite from an infected mosquito. Horses cannot spread it to humans like themselves, like I said, and vice versa. Symptoms in horses would include fever, incoordination, hind end weakness, depression, anorexia, muscle tremors, and head pressing. I don't know if I've seen dogs, they say, you know, not my dog, but they say to talk to your vet if your dog is ever like pressing their head against something, because there's usually something wrong, something's going on. They could do this too.
Really?
Yeah, like they'll press their head against the wall as if they're trying to, like as if it's something's hurting, something's painful.
Like it relieves pressure almost?
Yeah.
Wow.
Symptoms in humans are similar, with fever, chills, headache, joint and muscle pain, nausea, and vomiting, but can worsen to behavior changes, seizures, and coma. Of course, horses can't vomit, so you won't see that with them. Now, the illness can last 1 to 2 weeks, and most people recover completely when there's no central nervous system involvement. And treatment involves relieving symptoms and the use of IV fluids if needed. Now, the death rate in horses is 30 to 50%, while in humans it is 30%, pretty much. Now, while this one and its neurological complications, while this one is rare, it's pretty serious. Those younger than 15 and those over 50 tend to develop more severe infections. Around 2% of infected adults and 6% of infected children go on to develop encephalitis. This is like a brain infection, inflammation of the brain, and it's basically the most dangerous complication of this disease. Now, the inflammation is actually a result of the immune system trying to sort of cage up this illness, like the inflammation, but obviously the pressure within your skull cannot handle it.
Yeah,
your
swelling has nowhere to go inside the skull,
and so you're cause brain damage. Up to 1/3 of those with encephalitis die from it. Death usually occurs 2 to 10 days after onset of symptoms, but can occur much later. And many survivors develop lasting symptoms. So these can range from mild to severe, intellectual disability, personality disorders, seizures, paralysis, and cranial nerve dysfunction. And many with such complications require long-term institutional care. Those with long-term complications often die within a few years, too. So although it is relatively rare complication, the consequences can be pretty devastating. Symptoms of neurologic disease with this virus would include fever, headache, vomiting, diarrhea, seizures, behavioral changes, drowsiness, and coma. So if you're having symptoms of the illness itself and it seems to progress with the neurological side of things, it's a big sign. In infants, neurologic disease often occurs soon after onset. In older children and adults, encephalitis might occur after several days of systemic illness. Now, an issue with this disease is because it just pops up sporadically, we don't really know as much about it as we do the other viruses, like West Nile or Zika. And honestly, we're still learning things about West Nile and Zika, to be honest. But
that makes sense.
It's like this doesn't happen as often, and so it's kind of hard to study, and it's kind of sporadic.
Mm-hmm.
So there's advances in testing and creating a vaccine have been pretty slow because of that. There is a vaccine for horses. They tend to die from it more than humans do.
Right.
They tend to, but only a few cases are reported in the U.S. each year. Most cases occur in Eastern or Gulf Coast states. Thanks for that. Now, treatment again is symptomatic care and hospitalization for supportive care. The most recent case I had heard of before the news this past week, actually, before I saw it in the news this past week, was in Maine. Let's see. The CDC announced that the Maine resident became ill with severe symptoms in late August, that was of this year, and remains hospitalized, from what I've read. There have been 4 confirmed infections in horses here in Georgia. There are usually an average of 7 severe human cases a year in America, but the summer/fall of 2019 saw a lot more than that. There were at least 34 cases that year with 12 deaths, which is a lot considering what the average is. The cases were confirmed in these cases in Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Michigan, New Jersey, and North Carolina. And most experts believe that it was due to the heavy amount of rainfall in certain areas, as well as new strains sort of hitching a ride in vulnerable migratory birds that tend to go to places like Florida and come back. The virus tends to thrive in Florida year round because the temperatures there, they don't really drop that far. Eastern equine encephalitis was actually transmitted through organ transplantation involving 1 organ donor and 3 organ recipients. This occurred in the fall of 2017, and the 3 donor recipients showed symptoms within a week of the procedure. Really sucks. Ultimately, 2 of those patients died of complications related to the virus, and 1 patient survived with residual neurologic deficits, like I'd mentioned, can happen. There is also a Western equine encephalitis. However, it's even more rare. I think the last outbreak in the U.S. in people was in 1987. Since then, there have only been 5 cases identified in the U.S. The last reported case of Western equine encephalitis occurred in 1999, and it was just a sporadic case. Now, historically, the virus has been found in parts of North America, Central America, and South America. So similar kind of area. Now, the one that happened just recently that I saw was in South Carolina. I want to say it was Beaufort County. We go to Beaufort a lot, actually.
I've been there many
and
times.
I would tell you those mosquitoes, there's like seasons for bugs in certain places. And then I know when we go to Beaufort, it's like around the spring to early summer, you have like, is it love bug season? And they don't bite, but they're just annoying. They're just they're like everywhere. But
is that the swarm we saw?
No, that was termites. Those are flying termites.
Gross.
They swarm around that time too.
Gross.
They're not the kind that you probably need to call Terminix about unless you're getting them very often, but they tend to come in and just die. It's really annoying.
Thanks. I hate it.
Yeah. They're really annoying though. They get everywhere too. They just swarm in places, but then they just kind of go away. Beaufort County resident dies from rare mosquito-borne Eastern equine encephalitis virus. And that's the first time there in over 20 years. And so they're just telling people, hey, get rid of any stagnant water around your house. And it's like,
yeah.
I mean, the thing is though, it's like some places are just wet.
That's
and
right.
Honestly, a lot of places in South Carolina and Florida, they're just wet.
The tide coming in and out.
So,
yeah.
I hopefully that won't happen again anytime soon. But I did want to mention that just because it was in the news. I had planned on skipping over that one too, just because of time constraints. But that was one of the smaller ones I'd written about because it is so rare. And like I said, I will go over some of the other ones in a more bonus type episode. Might even just put a bonus of me talking about those two on for free on the Patreon when I do the other bonus, because it wouldn't take me long to go through that.
You should.
Because I wrote it up. And would I say I'm going to do something? I'd do it. Okay, so you're going to get that. You're going to get that too.
And the people will love you for it.
You'll get it too, I promise. But yeah, for malaria, this one's old. The parasites that cause malaria, they're older than us as humans. And it has a huge body count. So yeah, it's been around way before humans showed up. First evidence of malaria has been found in mosquitoes trapped in amber some 30 million years ago. So fun. Now, before moving on, this illness is actually caused by a parasite called a plasmodium, which is just fun to say, plasmodium. There are 5 malaria parasites that cause illness in humans. There's Plasmodium falciparum, which I believe originated in gorillas before being passed to us via mosquitoes. Plasmodium malariae. This is human specific, but it can also be found in chimpanzees. Plasmodium vivax. Their origin was in gorillas and chimps. Plasmodium ovale and Plasmodium knowlesi. I'd like to know lessy about it. No, I'm just kidding. Plasmodium falciparum is the deadliest malaria parasite and the most prevalent on the African continent. Plasmodium vivax is the dominant malaria parasite in most countries outside of sub-Saharan Africa, but it would be like the second most dangerous, to be honest. They both can cause pretty severe illness in people. Now, these are the two basically that pose the biggest risk to human life. They are transmitted into the blood via an infected mosquito, usually of the Anopheles species, which I'm pretty sure I'll tell you the meaning of that word later.
All right.
Then because I want to make sure I get it right.
All right.
Then they basically when you're infected via mosquito, these parasites travel to the liver. They set up base there and mature. They can be dormant from like 10 days up to a year, depending on the species of the parasite. Because I think Oval and Vivax maybe those two. I'll come back over it in just a minute too. But I'm pretty sure they can live in the liver. They can survive just sitting there for a while.
Live in the liver. What
a life. But then they, once they mature and they're done being dormant, they can infect red blood cells. Now they reproduce within the red blood cells and cause the cells to burst. Then they invade more, cause those to burst. And this just becomes a cycle of bursting blood cells. No fun. So if a mosquito bites an infected person, it can then spread it to other people. since they affect red blood cells, the disease/parasites can be passed via the blood, as in contaminated blood transfusions. Honestly, most of these, if not all, whether it's dengue, yellow fever, can be transmitted this way as well. But yes.
Yeah.
Also sharing needles and from mother to fetus. Now, malaria has been a major health concern in humans since we began living together in settlements. Once we started the whole village type deal, or let's hang out together, farming, hunting, gathering and such, doing all that. Now, this was beginning around 10,000 years ago, mind you. Even nomadic tribes were often in groups, and this would affect them as well. Makes sense. If one of them gets infected, a mosquito bites that one, bites another.
Mm-hmm.
There's in such close contact, Mm-hmm. Now, the only continent that malaria has not touched is Antarctica. So there's that. It is known that P. falciparum, so Plasmodium falciparum, was big in ancient Egypt. The presence of malaria in Egypt from circa 800 BCE onwards has been confirmed using DNA-based methods. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus wrote that the builders of the Egyptian pyramids, this would have been between 2700 and 1700 BC, were given large amounts of garlic, likely to stave off the disease. So this would have been something they tried. And I'm wondering if it's because mosquitoes are not a fan.
Is it repellent?
Of garlic. Yeah. Well, garlic's good for you to eat. It's not like a cure, but it is healthy for you to eat. So I don't know if it helped their immune systems too. Either way, when you get a healthy immune system is not the only thing that's going to fight off malaria.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, you have to get treatment for malaria.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're incredibly, incredibly fortunate. But good luck with that. So it's also known that mosquito nets were used then as well. The pharaoh Sneferu, Snuffleupagus, Sneferu,
Nosferatu,
Sneferu, the founder of the 4th dynasty of Egypt. He reigned from around 2613 to 2589 BC. Used bed nets as protection against mosquitoes. Cleopatra the 7th, the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt, similarly slept under a mosquito net. What is not known for certain is whether this was done intentionally to prevent malaria, like they knew that this would protect them because perhaps the insects were causing it, or just to protect from the general discomfort of insects like mosquitoes. Because I know for us, modern history, we didn't discover mosquitoes were the cause of yellow fever until the late 1800s. And so we wouldn't have known. Mm-hmm. But who knows? Maybe they connected the dots and thought or theorized. Now,
that'd be wild if they did.
Yeah. The ancient Greeks were also plagued by the parasites, the illness, as recognized in their writings by 4th century BCE, and was likely a reason for the population decline in many city-states. It was Hippocrates that coined the term miasma, which can mean stain or pollution for the cause of disease, theorizing that it was the dangerous fumes in the air from the earth carried by the winds that should be blamed. And this is what RFK Jr. believes in as well, instead of germ theory.
Sure. What a guy.
Now, look, I don't like pollution either. Can pollution cause you to get sick later? Yeah. Carcinogenic compounds, I get that, but that's not what they're talking about here. It was pretty well known around this time that swamps, marshlands were big sources of bad air. But that makes sense because what lives in swamps?
Mosquitoes, baby.
Yeah. Among other things, I know, but yeah.
Wow.
So, the air, like I said, it can make you sick if it's toxic, obviously, but that's not what causes malaria. Still, he did notice that fevers and illness involving them seem to occur more alongside changes in climate and environment, which makes sense. As we know, mosquitoes are prevalent when it's warm or hot and humid. They're not really around when it's cold, which is why in Florida, you see them year-round for the most part. Now, in China, documents from about 200 to 300 AD refer to epidemics involving fever and enlarged spleens. This can happen if it's destroying red blood cells. What is like the recycle center or the place for your red blood cells, right? The spleen. So it's getting overwhelmed and it's going to enlarge.
Yeah.
So that's just another clue, but they didn't know what they were looking at the time. There was a Chinese manuscript written by Ji Hong. I hope I'm saying his name right. He was a Chinese physician, linguist, philosopher, politician, one of those polymaths, in the 4th century. And it translates to emergency prescriptions kept in one's sleeve. Now, obviously, there is a Chinese title to this. I didn't want to butcher it, so I'm telling you what it was translated to. Okay. I just didn't want to butcher it. So now in this document, Hong recommends, I believe it's Ging Hao, which is basically the Artemisia annua herb, to help with fevers seen with this illness.
Okay, immediately when you say herb, I'm immediately thinking of, is this toothbrush approved by the American Dental Association? Herb.
I have a toothbrush question.
Shoplifter. Okay.
It's
this is Home Alone, guys. We're referencing the movie Home Alone.
It's almost that season. I love it.
Back to mosquito-borne illnesses.
Indeed. So this herbal remedy was actually listed as a solution for female hemorrhoids in another manuscript found in China from 168 BCE, translated as recipes for 52 kinds of diseases. The traditional medicinal use when it came to fevers was to soak fresh plants of the Artemisia herb in cold water, wring them out, and ingest the expressed bitter juice in their raw state. Or you could make a tea with it as well. Now, this herb is also known as sweet Annie or sweet wormwood, and it's been actually since proven to contain anti-malarial properties. In 1971, scientists demonstrated that the plant extracts had anti-malarial activity in primate models, and in 1972, the active ingredient artemisinin was isolated. The World Health Organization has also since approved a drug known as Riamet or Coartem, which is a combination of lumefantrine and artemether, which is an artemisinin, what is my life? An artemisinin derivative extracted with ether. So it's this kind of, combination drug that includes this particular, what has been extracted from this herb that seems to work. And it's been used basically in repeat treatments over 2 days. It can actually have an efficacy of up to 98% against malaria, which is pretty good.
Mercy.
Pretty good.
Okay.
It has been found, however, that simple teas made with the herb, while beneficial in some ways, it's got some good things for the body. It's not enough to cure the illness, like in its natural form. Like it may help with some symptoms, but it doesn't cure the disease. Now, as of 2013, it also seems that the pathogenic agent of malaria is becoming resistant to artemisinin-based drugs, which sucks. Emergence of artemisinin resistance has been identified in Cambodia and on the border of Thailand. It's likely to spread. Hate it. Now, in our last bonus episode, I briefly discussed the Roman Empire and their experience with malaria. Then, in the surrounding area, it was known as the Roman fever. Such an epidemic of the deadly disease in the 5th century AD is believed to have weakened the Romans enough to contribute to the nation's fall. So, kind of hard to not fall when you're always sick, I guess.
100%. How often do you think about the Roman Empire, babe?
Never.
Same.
It comes up in the history of like some illnesses.
Oh, sure.
And I know they've, I've looked at some Roman mythology and stuff, but they were just one of those civilizations that came and went.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know people are like, but they built roads and aqueducts. I get it. Okay. Now, in some places, witchcraft and vampires were to blame for these illnesses and deaths. I know we've mentioned some of this before. Superstition was pretty huge back then. In some cases, it still is today. Now, one such superstition was that the dead would return and curse others to sickness and death. As such, there were vampire burials, if you will, like all across Europe, various parts of Italy, and then throughout the rest of Europe as well, and on into the medieval period and beyond, because they were still doing this a lot, especially with like when TB was becoming widespread and such, which makes sense. I feel like with TB, like people are coughing up blood, and so it looks more morbid, and so they're immediately thinking, oh, vampire, right? There's somebody's affecting you, or witchcraft. Now, some of these burials involved rituals and acts such as dismembering the corpse or leaving iron coins or trinkets in the mouth, because iron, or a stake in the heart, sickle at the neck. So if he tries to get up, I guess he cuts his own neck off. I don't know. Some would cut the head off and like put it under his armpit. So like I guess they thought if they couldn't reach his head, if he can't reach his own head, then he can't get out of the grave. It was some interesting.
Wow.
It was some interesting theories involved with that.
All right.
Also, the whole vampires can't see themselves in mirrors. I think it was because they used to have like a silver backing in the mirror or something. And so like it had to do with how mirrors used to be made, not so much that they can't see the reflection. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, interesting little fact there. So vampire burials. Now there were a lot of ways people did this. And it wasn't just for malaria, like I mentioned. It was something seen with a few diseases with epidemic natures, including TB. Now, continuing on into the medieval period, because this is a practice that would just increase in those centuries, as would like witch hunts and hangings and burnings of innocents accused of witchcraft. We already know what I'm going to say they did in these Middle Ages for malaria. Bloodletting, purging, the whole humor rebalancing, basically. Some went so far as to remove limbs considered to be the problem, or trepanning, which is that burring of the hole into the skull. We've talked about that a little bit. Some people still think it's a thing to do today. And they'll go to other countries to have it done. It's pretty fringe these days, but
good Lord.
It's happened. Around the 16th century, malaria was killing as many people in England then and there, called marsh fever or tertian fever, as in sub-Saharan Africa today. So it was just,
That's wild. Because now we think of malaria as a tropical disease, etc.
Yeah, well, the River Thames, which was nasty at the time, and no offense, likely it still is.
No offense, your river
just
sucks.
not as nearly as sewage laden now as it used to be. And look, our rivers are terrible too. Okay, the Savannah River, I'm not putting a toe in that river. I'm sorry, not after what I've heard. But this was a huge attraction for these disease-ridden mosquitoes, and you can see historic references to malaria in the plays of William Shakespeare. And in the actual death records of so many people, including 4 members of the Medici family, who we've definitely discussed because poison. Across the pond here in America, it has been suggested that new deadlier strains of malaria were brought over with the slave trade after Columbus discovered the Americas. While there are no references to malaria or an illness like it in Mayan and Aztec writings, antibodies to such have been found in South American mummies. This means at least some strain was likely here before Columbus showed up. So speaking of the slave trade, there is a theory out there that malaria-ridden mosquitoes played a role in the sole dependence on African slaves being more sought after by plantation owners over British indentured servants, as those from Africa tended to have more immunity against this and other diseases like it. I'm sure it was also because with slavery, there's more control, money to be had. They also considered Africans to be inferior to them in so many ways. And the theory has been questioned by historians of American and Caribbean slavery because of the facts that support more economic and or social reasons, for obvious. They just weren't good people. Okay.
Nope.
Now, the spread of more deadly strains of malaria also greatly hurt populations of Native Americans, as we know, and weakened them, making them more susceptible to even more disease. The Revolutionary War was definitely influenced by mosquitoes, as malaria, yellow fever, dengue fever hit the Brits pretty hard when they tried to take the South. This was also a problem for Union forces during the Civil War. Mosquitoes and parasites do not care. They do not take sides. They just want blood. No F's given by mosquitoes. Just blood.
Devil's crunch.
Just blood taken. That's all they care. And I know I've mentioned this before, but it's how it's the females that bite to get the blood to make their eggs to reproduce and all that.
Just kidding.
Now, World War II was just another war influenced and affected by mosquitoes and the diseases they carry. Things took a twisted turn around this time because of the experimentation being done with them. Nazi Germany experimented on captives in concentration camps using all manner of horrible toxins, diseases, operations, activities, you name it. Yeah. And they were not the only ones to do so. A topic we will cover in a future episode very soon. Now, malaria just happened to be one of the diseases involved in such experiments. America, the UK, Russia, and even friendly Canada all did some looking into entomological warfare, actually. So just not to the degree that Germany and Japan did. So, okay. I was honestly dreading the history surrounding this illness simply because I knew it was long, and I know how I am with needing to include all the things and leave nothing out. But there, we did it, or at least we covered the early history, most of that. Okay. I'm going to hit on the discovery of the plasmodium that causes malaria as well as the drugs that have since come into use. So just sit tight with me. But signs and symptoms, because this illness is never has been fun, as is any illness, I suppose. But you get what I mean. It's not cool. The most common early symptoms are fever, headaches, and chills.
Flu-like symptoms.
So, which is, becomes a problem in an area where there's lots of diseases like this, and you have to figure out, well, what is it?
That's right.
Such symptoms typically occur 10 to 15 days after transmission, so being bit by an infected mosquito. Some plasmodium species can be latent for years, as I mentioned, just hanging out in the liver. Now, symptoms may progress to nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, muscle and joint pain, abdominal pain, fatigue, malaise, just your general feeling of ick, right? Rapid heart rate, rapid breathing, and cough. I think I mentioned earlier that Plasmodium falciparum was the worst of the bunch, followed by P. vivax, causing severe disease in nearly all of those infected. Now, with severe disease, there are such symptoms as severe anemia. Makes sense. Your blood cells are being destroyed. Inability to walk or move. Respiratory distress resulting in acute respiratory distress syndrome. Hypoglycemia, your blood sugars is low. Kidney failure, metabolic acidosis. So you basically your pH is too acidic. And neurological complications. Sometimes this is termed cerebral malaria. So you'd have confusion, seizures, aphasia. It's almost like someone's had a stroke. Hemiparesis, so partial paralysis, respiratory distress due to brainstem involvement, and coma. Now, severe and cerebral malaria is nearly always fatal without treatment, and about 20% fatal even with it. So it's pretty serious. The rates of death do depend on other factors, of course, besides just the diagnosis. I mean, this is true with most disease, of course. And I want to read from the NIH's 2022 article on severe malaria because it pretty much sums up the modern problem of malaria in sub-Saharan Africa and some other places. They say it is a major cause of preventable childhood death in tropical countries. Severe malaria justifies considerable global investment in malaria control and elimination, yet increasingly international agencies, funders, and policymakers are unfamiliar with it, and so it is overlooked. In sub-Saharan Africa, severe malaria is actually overdiagnosed in clinical practice. Approximately 1/3 of children diagnosed with severe malaria have another condition, usually sepsis, as the cause of their severe illness. But these children have a high mortality, contributing substantially to the number of deaths attributed to severe malaria. And that's just, again, like, if they have flu-like symptoms, we're just going to guess that it might be malaria and give you some stuff. So, like, even if they don't have malaria, this whole situation of not knowing much about it is getting them killed too, because they're not looking for what's actually going on. Like there's not enough testing. There's not enough.
Yeah, you have to know. You got to have effective diagnostic tools.
And I mean, they could also easily have things like anemia already and catch malaria, which would make them even more anemic.
Yeah.
So simple, well-established tests such as examination of the thin blood smear and the full blood count improve the specificity of diagnosis and provide prognostic information in severe malaria. They should be performed more widely. Early administration of artesunate and broad-spectrum antibiotics to all children with suspected severe malaria would reduce global malaria mortality. Now, in this same article, they acknowledge that testing and treatment are just not as readily available in many areas of sub-Saharan Africa. Prognosis and even treatment may depend on the species of parasite that a patient is ill with. Also, those infected with malaria, especially children, need immediate care if they're expected to live. And then, there's the issue of nutrition as well. As they've stated, children who are admitted with severe malaria anemia have a high mortality in the months following admission. So malaria can lead to the complication of anemia, but many children in these areas are already malnourished. Mm-hmm. So children who do survive will often have lifelong neurological impairment, seizures, and can just become comatose. Many may need airway and breathing support in case of respiratory distress. But unfortunately, ventilators and trained staff are often unavailable in these areas where severe malaria is common. So the amount of disease-ridden mosquitoes is definitely a factor in the number of diseases and deaths in these countries, but so is poverty, lack of access to needed prophylaxis and treatment, healthcare overall, if you will, education on the subject, misdiagnosis, and delay in treatment. Now, from a practical case management perspective, specificity in the diagnosis is not as important as recognition that severe malaria could be the cause of the severe illness and thus starting life-saving treatment with artesunate as soon as possible. In children with suspected severe malaria in higher transmission settings, parenteral broad-spectrum antibiotics should also be given immediately in all cases. As a delay in receiving artesunate is a major contributor to death, it is important that referral to a facility capable of managing the sick patient should be as rapid as possible. So that's just another take from them, which I thought was pretty to the point. Mm-hmm. Now, another problem, of course, is the lack of vector control and such helpful products as mosquito nets for beds and the like if you can prevent them from biting you in the first place, that's probably the most helpful, right? Add on to all of this, the growing resistance to drugs, as well as climate change. It's just a perfect storm continuing to happen, not just waiting to happen, but continuing to happen. Now, as for stats on places most affected, tropical and sub-Saharan African countries are still at the top. I believe, in 2021, they had 95% of cases and 96% of deaths from the disease. Nigeria ranking highest in both of those, followed by the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, other areas where malaria is prevalent include Southeast Asia, Central and South America, and Oceania. Okay, back to some quick history. The cause and treatment of this illness evaded humankind for a long time. In 1848, German anatomist Johann Heinrich Meckel was doing an autopsy on a patient from a mental hospital where he had died when he noticed these black-brown granules in the blood and in his spleen. He labeled these as melanin. He didn't know what he was really looking at. There was no mention of malaria, but most believe that he was seeing the causal parasites without even realizing it. So now the spleens of malaria victims have typically been enlarged when seen in autopsy. As I've mentioned, that's kind of makes sense. In 1880, French physician Charles Louis Alphonse Leverin sounds better, noticed some moving bits in the blood that he was looking at. Flagella, basically, is what he was seeing. He noticed that quinine removed the parasites from the blood. Leverin called this microscopic organism Oscillaria malariae and proposed that malaria was caused by this protozoan that he was looking at.
Oh, boy.
Of course, this idea of his remained controversial until the development of the oil immersion lens in 1884 and of superior staining methods in the late 1800s. In 1885, Camillo Golgi of Golgi apparatus fame.
Yeah, the Golgi body.
Yeah. But he observed that all parasites present in the blood divided almost simultaneously at regular intervals, and that division coincided with attacks of fever. In 1886, Golgi described the morphological differences that are still used to distinguish two malaria parasites, the species of Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium malariae. He and some others began to distinguish between different Plasmodium species and their link to symptomatic illness because, as I mentioned, like Falciparum and Vivax are the ones that typically cause severe disease, but then like there's others that can stay latent within the liver. Leverin would finally get the recognition that he deserved in 1907 when he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Physiology or Medicine. And you can also thank Aristotle and later Francis Bacon for the ultimate creation of the scientific method, because once it was pushed hard in the 19th century, it demanded testable hypotheses and verifiable evidence for causation and transmission, something we should still be pushing. Let's be honest. Now, some seem to still not understand such ideas. Now, it was in 1881 that we discovered that yellow fever was spread by mosquitoes. And scientists were like, wait a minute. So some physicians like Massachusetts health officer Dr. Leonard White, during the outbreak in 1896 there, began proposing some preventative measures involving the repelling or protection from mosquitoes. Like, it hadn't been proven just yet, but they were like, it wouldn't hurt to maybe not get bit by mosquitoes. The proof of mosquitoes being the vectors of malaria actually came from British Army surgeon Sir Ronald Ross in 1897 while he was working in India. He did a lot of further research and found that the parasites could live in the salivary glands of the mosquito before transmission. So that's how they...
Perfect place to be.
More research was being done in Italy as well, and Giovanni Battista Grassi, a professor of comparative anatomy, found that it is the Anopheles mosquito species that caused human malaria in 1898. By the way, I mentioned I was going to tell you the meaning where Anopheles came from. Greek Anopheles means good for nothing, which, I mean, mosquitoes.
Which is my nickname in college.
Good for nothing, Anopheles. Sir Ronald Ross was awarded for his work with the Nobel Prize in 1902.
I mean, yeah.
So.
Well deserved, sir.
Yes.
Like that year, everybody's like, I mean, nobody's going to top that.
Well, took a while, but we got it. Now, some infected with malaria actually have these relapses known as malarial attacks. And you'll probably, when we go into a future episode when we talk about experimentation in concentration camps or with Unit 731 with Japan and stuff, you might hear about malarial attacks. Such relapses were actually first noted in 1897 by William S. Thayer, who recounted the experiences of a physician who relapsed 21 months after leaving an endemic area. Now, he proposed the existence of a tissue stage of the parasite. So like a latent, like something's, Relapses were later confirmed by Patrick Manson, who allowed infected Anopheles mosquitoes to feed on his eldest son. Thanks, Dad. Last name would be Manson, right?
And I'd just like to mention, once again, institutional review boards. Stop those things.
Was this man related to Charles Manson, and did they share mental illness? Anyway, the younger Manson then described a relapse 9 months after his apparent cure with quinine. So as it turns out, some species of malaria parasite, P. vivax and P. ovale, can have dormant liver stages, which will result in later symptoms or attacks months or even years later, causing illness that can be severe and require treatment again. So they'll be latent. So like you can have malaria, get treated. There's still some latent critters in your liver that they can wake up and get back in your blood and cause malaria basically again, or have those symptoms again. And so you have to get it treated again to kill those. Now, we are fortunate now to have medications that can kill remaining and dormant forms of the parasite, known as hypnozoites, with something called primaquine, phosphate, or tefenoquine. There are differing criteria for these meds. I'm not going to go into that here. It's just cool to know they exist. As for treatments of active malaria, we have covered artemisinin, isolated from the herb Artemisia annua, ginghao, sweet wormwood. We talked about that with what was going on in China when they were dealing with it, like way back when. And its subsequent use against malaria. Artemisinin is a sesquiterpene lactone containing a peroxide group, which is believed to be essential for its anti-malarial activity. So I'm just trying to explain what it is. Its derivatives, artesunate, which I mentioned in the NIH article, and artemether, whatever, have been used in clinics since 1987 for the treatment of drug resistance and drug-sensitive malaria, specifically or especially cerebral malaria. So that's been still in use. 1985, Zhao Ziqing and his team combined artemether and lumefantrine into a single tablet. This is what became known as Coartem. It was registered as a medicine in China for use in 1992. But access to such drugs are limited in many places, which sucks. Yep. Now, quinine, because I know this is a drug name I've probably used a lot, quinine, and we should all be familiar with chloroquine by now. Quinine is an alkaloid found in the cinchona tree of South America. There was a long history of indigenous groups in Ecuador using the cinchona's tree bark, the cinchona tree's bark, said that too fast, sometimes also known as Peruvian bark, to treat fevers, and this was noticed by some Spanish missionaries. It was also being observed by Jesuit missionary and apothecary student Brother Alambrino in the late 1500s and early 1600s, after which the remedy was introduced into European medicine by other Jesuit missionaries, namely one Barnaby de Cobo, who had ventured around South America for a while. The bark would be dried and ground into this fine powder, then mixed into a wine. A few hundred years later, quinine was found to be the curative factor, like it was isolated from that. In 1820, French chemist Pierre-Joseph Pelletier, like the water, sorry, and French pharmacist Joseph Benaim Caventou separated the alkaloids cinchonine and quinine from powdered fever tree bark, allowing for the creation of standardized doses of the active ingredients. So there was a problem with quinine. It's actually kind of toxic. Obviously, the dose makes the poison and all. We'd say that a lot. But part of medicine research has always been, is there a therapeutic dose that humans can rely on without horrible effects or, dying, right? Now, with quinine, along with many other early meds, the dose needed to be effective was very close to the toxic dose. Like, it was pretty narrow. Some experienced horrible side effects, and the most common were grouped into what became known as synchronism. Synchronism from like the tree.
Yes.
Yeah. That it's named for. This led to headache, nausea, sweating, vision changes, and hearing problems like tinnitus.
Tinnitus.
That's
how I say it.
That's how I say it too, but okay. I've been corrected in some cases, which really? I think, though, it's how it's said down here, and people have just said it down here like that for a long time.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah. But whether you say tinnitus, it's the ringing in the ears.
Yeah.
We know this, right?
The intrusive ringing in the ears.
Mm-hmm. It might be like a southern thing too. Tinnitus.
Yes, very possible.
Tinnitus. Now, if you mess up and take too high a dose, it could result in irregular heartbeat, bleeding due to low platelet levels, kidney damage alongside uremic syndrome. So like you're no longer making urine, low blood sugar, and such could be fatal. Mm-hmm. Some also had some nasty allergic reactions to this. For this reason, as well as the growing monopoly on the trees that quinine came from, somebody was able to sneak out some seeds from the tree. And I think the Dutch had like a monopoly where it's like, they're making money. Like, oh, look at us. We've got all the trees that make the cure.
Oh, wow.
Which, I mean,
a move.
They went like United Healthcare for a bit,
Okay.
And honestly, I could come for all of them, not just them, but sure. Here we are. Yeah, so this led to the search for alternatives, right? There was also a growing resistance of malaria to quinine. Now, chloroquine was made in 1946 as an alternative to quinine. Chloroquine-resistant forms of P. falciparum started to emerge only 19 years later, unfortunately. Such cases were first recognized around the 1950s along the Cambodia-Thailand border, then in Colombia. In 1989, chloroquine resistance in P. vivax was reported in Papua New Guinea. These resistant strains spread rapidly, producing a large mortality increase, particularly in Africa during the 1990s. So, research continues. There are some recent vaccines, however, for those living in endemic areas. The World Health Organization recommended the first, Mosquitoes, which sounds like mosquito, Mosquitoes.
Nice.
In 2021, and can be given to children starting at the age 5. It works against P. falciparum, the most deadly malaria parasite in Africa. Basically, the vaccine triggers the immune system to produce antibodies that fight the parasite before it can multiply in the liver. It reduces severe malaria cases and hospitalizations. So far, rollout of this vaccine in Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi has shown a 13% decrease in mortality in those who received it. So that's promising.
Yeah.
Another was approved and recommended by the World Health Organization in 2023. This one is actually similar to the first. It's just shown higher efficacy, like a good 75% when administered seasonally in areas with highly seasonal transmission. Now, this, along with insecticide-covered bed nets and efficient testing and treatment, will just be so helpful so long as there is accessibility to these things. That's the big issue, I think.
As long as they never get rid of USAID, it'll be good.
Another treatment option, which you would find probably more around here if needed, would be exchange blood transfusions for some with severe malaria. So, like, yours is being removed while you're getting
an oil change.
Basically. Travelers to endemic areas can receive meds ahead of time for preventative or foreseen need. Like, your doctor can just order you some chloroquine, and if you need it, you can take it. Basically, just if you're going to places where there's a lot of those infections, because especially and it's honestly good for you to do it that way too, because if you're going to a place and then you get ill over there, medicines there are already in short supply. Like, the people need their medicines. Take your own if you can. Obviously, a way to reduce infections is to reduce populations of mosquitoes who carry them. Useless, no good, anopheles mosquitoes. In 1930, for instance, malarial mosquitoes were discovered in Brazil, having been unintentionally imported there, it seems, with travel. This ever since, traveling worldwide has been a thing. It's been a problem. This unfortunately caused the greatest epidemic of malaria ever seen in this part of the world. Eradication of these pests was achieved in 1940 by the systematic application of the arsenic-containing compound Paris green to breeding places, and of pyrethrum spray killing to adult resting places. Paris green has also been used as a dye, so that's fun. So yeah, there always seems to be a trade-off: malaria or arsenic. The Austrian chemist Othmar Zeidler is credited with the first synthesis of DDT in 1874. The insecticidal properties of DDT were identified in 1939, however, by chemist Paul Hermann Müller of Geigy Pharmaceutical for his discovery of DDT as a contact poison against several arthropods. He was actually awarded the 1948 Nobel Prize. Now, studies in Mexico showed that DDT remained effective for 6 to 8 weeks if sprayed on the inside walls and ceilings of houses and other buildings. Now, it was sprayed worldwide and was seen as a hard-hitting measure in the fight against malaria. And it worked. However, it has since been shown to cause cancer and is a veritable threat to wildlife like birds and mammals and in areas that are sprayed. So DDT was banned for agricultural use in America in 1972, but it has not been banned for non-agricultural use, as in malarial preventative measures. There have been plans and failed attempts to commence with DDT spraying in endemic areas for various reasons. I mean, the toxic nature of such, I'm sure, being one of them. There's always a trade-off, it seems. Now, the insecticidal nature of pyrethrums, like with your chrysanthemums, your mums, has long been a help against mosquitoes. These plants contain pyrethrins, which attack the nervous system of all insects. Measures such as draining wetlands or areas of standing water, large or small, have been helpful as well. Now, I will say with pyrethrin, it can also kill things like bees and your typical pollinators. So there's a trade-off there. So like if you're not worried about malaria, use it sparingly. Now, there has been a lot of work on behalf of human evolution, as in genetic adaptation within the body and the passing on of such. So I'm just going to go over a few, and this is what your body has done. I'm not saying people have made this happen. Your body is, like other animals, really good with adaptation and trying to pass on genes that are most that make sense. Does it always work? No. Does it sometimes have bad effects too? Yes. So let's talk about it. So sickle cell. Now, sickle cell trait is different from sickle cell disease. Sickle cell trait is the inheriting of one copy of the allele, the hemoglobin S allele to be specific. And those with this do not typically have sickle cell anemia, but are highly resistant to severe malaria. The abnormal hemoglobin causes red blood cells to sickle, which disrupts the parasite's life cycle, makes the infected cells more susceptible to removal by the spleen. Now, the downside comes when someone inherits two copies, resulting in sickle cell disease, which is often painful and fatal in and of itself. More recent adaptations involving hemoglobin alleles like C and E, there's a lot of different genetic things. They produce similar traits, but when two copies of such are present, can cause less severe forms of anemia. Thalassemia is another such disorder. There are some genetic enzyme deficiencies found in those living in or with ancestors from the Mediterranean, Africa, Asia that lower the risk for severe malaria. There's also genetic traits involving structural changes of the red blood cells that have shown preventative effects against malaria, and studies showing that blood group O has also shown resistance to malaria caused by P. falciparum, which may be due to like the reduction of adherence between red blood cells to each other. But yeah, that's just some stuff that the body itself has tried to do to outrun malaria. It's been with us a long time. I mean, it was with us. It was here before us. So, but that's malaria. It's a long subject, and that's why I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to hit every single one of them. So I will put like West Nile and Zika in its own little sub section here eventually, probably this week sometime. So just yeah, there's malaria for you. But malaria is important to talk about. It's just because it's still a big baddie that we're dealing with in the world.
Yep. All right, everyone. That's going to do it for this episode of the Poisoner's Almanac. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.